Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Larps and Tarps podcast. I'm Morgan, and I'm joined by Tom.
Hello.
And we have some very special guests on today. We are joined by the LARP Noobs.
Hello.
Thank you. Thanks very much for coming on. I was going to see which of you were going to introduce yourselves first, but you kind of went at the same time.
Do you like the extremely awkward hello?
I love it.
Voices in the dark.
It's the first time they've ever been on the podcast, so it's give them a break, I guess.
I'm Dave, and I'm here with Ian.
They're totally here.
Hello.
Totally here on the web.
I've come to our multi-million-pound studio, and we're all sat together.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Like,
Can I offer you more caviar?
Tate-like for my taste, but it's all right. You know what I mean?
Oh
my gosh.
Christ. Thanks for coming on today, guys. We thought it'd be really good to chat about. I think it's interesting because we're very much at the start of our kind of LARP podcast journey, and despite the fact I feel like you guys need to change your names at this point, considering you've been doing it for how long now?
Yeah, I was thinking, that scene from like Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, and where they're like, "Who have we got on the job?" They've got like top men. You're just like, we are definitively not the top men. we'd be like the people who definitely are not responsible for looking after the Lost Ark.
I think we allow people to be aspirational about what they're doing, because if we can do it,
yeah,
anyone can literally.
I feel like you're
yeah.
professors who have got tenure. You can do what you want. You're the eccentric old men in the corner saying, we can get away with anything.
We've been doing it for a while. Ian, was it you that said to me the other day that like we've been doing it since 2018 and it's now 2023, and that's
Terrifying.
Yeah, it's way more fun being the young upstarts, by the way. Like, it's like being 5 years in is like one of those things where you're just like, oh man, like we're the furniture now. Do you know what I mean? Like we're the people that we've won 2 LARP awards and should be stopped at all costs, and you know what I mean? Like we're the bad guys. And you're like I much prefer
if you do win a LARP award, you're like, don't do that. don't allow this.
Yeah, it's more like but now we got to win 3 in a row.
Yeah,
just
to get a hat trick and then done.
Yeah, but like, we're the bad guys now. So
no,
I
think it was I think it was my partner that first showed me you guys, because we got into LARP because of Tom. Got
best decision of their life.
Terrifying, expensive hobby.
Yeah,
and when we were looking for it, there's a bit of content out there, and I listened to a bunch of podcasts, and I'd found a few things, but nothing that really
resonated.
Yeah, or kind of gave enough. I was kind of like, it was the first video was like how to LARP, and it was like, go out on the field and do it. I'm like, yeah, cool, that's okay, but then I feel like I'm going to go into the field, and then exactly what I thought would happen again. I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? But it was good to have listened to you guys from the very start of like, this is how we started our journey, and we went on to Wish, and we wish we hadn't, and it was like listening to that journey.
Look, I think there's like there's a lot of very, very talented people online, and this goes in a lot of hobby spaces actually. I think where you can kind of jump on, say you want to learn about miniature painting or something like that, you will have no trouble finding someone who is significantly better than you'll probably ever be. And it's great to aspire to, of course. We are not those people. We very much decided, it was a bit of a whim, really, just to sort of get into cataloguing our journey from the very beginning to whatever you call wherever we are now, and sort of the whole evolution of it. And we are not, as the name would suggest, you don't come for like steeped knowledge of what's going on.
I think that's really useful. I think you don't want to. I feel like at LARP, a lot of people, not everyone, but wants to be like the hero and tell the best story. And it's really fun listening to. I mean, I think it was E1 of this year. It was just listening to like even like you're 5 years in. It's like, oh, these are some of the things we tripped up on, some of the difficulties we had. It's good listening to like a really honest podcast. Like, this is what LARP's like. This is our experience, and this is how things go. And also, you have such different games. Like, you both do such entirely different things that it's nice to be like, here's Dave, who basically pays to be stressed for a weekend doing a job in a fictional world, and here's...
That's not the way
Here's
to go,
Ian blowing
by the way.
bubbles.
Like, don't do it the day break.
I absolutely adored in the last game that you just said, Ian. I'm here to relax. I'm here to see my buddies, and I'm here to have a good time. Whereas Dave's like, it's all fallen apart. I've done all I can. If it's gone to shit now, I've done all I can.
War is coming.
Yeah, I think it's going back to what you were saying before, I think there's and this isn't a criticism of any other LARP creators when I say this. I think there was, I don't think there is now, a gap between like the physical, I need to go and get my kit, I need to go and book my tickets and all that stuff, which I think is an immediately thing that people, if you're going to make something on LARP, that's what you do. I think we were accidentally, not deliberately, just were very honest in our emotional experience. Yeah. I think that was something that was kind of lacking, which is actually one of the big hang-ups when you're first coming into LARP, is you can understand what it's like when you get your kit and all the rules and everything else. But I think having... I'm incredibly proud of those early episodes by how raggedy they are. I feel like that's some of our best stuff, is just when we're literally just so new to the hobby and just trying to figure out our place in such a massive game, you know? I think there's sort of an honesty of the vulnerability of it all, which, and I think we've tried to sort of maintain that as much as we can, sort of talking about our experiences. Oh no, Ian, we've hit full on. Like, I got called a LARP rock star at a LARP and absolutely loved it. Like, yeah, I hate LARP celebrity.
You're the worst.
Love rockstar. Yeah, absolutely. But like, no, we've jumped the shark at this stage. Like, we're but those early ones, I think, are like, I don't know, when you're first coming into the hobby, I think like when you're first, you put your gear on, you're sat in your tent, you're waiting for time in, and I think those sort of moments are things that I don't know how to articulate them now, right? Like 5 years on. But those are the real things that I think a lot of people, when they're first coming into the hobby, are kind of nervous about and struggle with. So, yeah, if we did anything right, it's that.
I think honesty is a very good thing. Like, I think I've mentioned in a few of our first episodes that for my first two games, for 2019 especially, I was a bit miserable. I went on my own. I kind of did my own thing. It was cold. I was like, I've just spent all this money on a costume and I don't know what to do. I think like you say, being honest about how it goes, putting your emotion in. Not everyone's going to be a hero off the bat. I think that does a lot of good for people to hear.
I don't think we are now. Like, I'm a diplomat on a treadmill, and Ian's blowing bubbles in the street. I don't know whether either of us qualify as heroes.
So there was this point where I was putting sort of this yellow eyeliner on, and I was sort of doing it, and I kind of was putting on all my Talis Regalia. And I was like, I was legit pretty nervous because I'm very self-conscious actually, like a lot of the time. And I was like, Dave, do you think this is like a little bit much? And he just ripped into it. He was like, that's the bit that tips it over the edge. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, too much was like a year ago. Do you know what I mean? It's
So when coming into LARP, did you two think you'd end up being the polar opposites in character?
I don't think
that was really weird. I would have expected our positions to be the reverse.
Oh, so Dave's the really silly, flamboyant one.
I would have thought you would have been doing what I was doing, and I'd be doing the very boring, serious game. No, I'm not. I'm taking the bait, but you know what I mean. Doing the thing, and it's not turned out that way at all. Actually,
yeah, I think there's some truth to that. Like, I am very much not into going to meetings. I mean this professionally as well as LARP, and now I've successfully got to the point where I have to go to meetings and meet people and do all that kind of really boring crunch stuff. So I think Ian's onto a point there that, yeah, I'm out of the two of us, I'm definitely not that guy, but I seem to have become that guy, so who knows?
Yeah, and are actually really effective at it as well. That's the other thing. I think, like, it's great, and this is one of the things of going to LARP, when you kind of get to have a group that you go with, even if they're people that you meet with there, and you get to see them succeed. And there's nothing better than seeing people you love triumph, right? And it's just like seeing people just do really well, and like to do things that are challenging, right, and like actually push the people in ways. And like I feel we've actually both learned a lot about ourselves through the characters we've played and through the experience of not just LARP but also making the podcast. I think like my personal character growth is like increased a lot just through those three things alone. Has been a massive change to who I am for the better.
See, they can be nice to each other when they start LARP.
Yeah, well, that was very much a decision that you made. I feel like was it, or was it me?
I think it was you who
Was it
chose
me
the
being
antagonistic.
just an arrogant, antlered little brat?
Yeah.
I think.
Totally
Pushing
you.
hard
Yeah, I
against
have a question. For you guys. So you're not part of the same nation.
Nope.
And I found that really interesting that, like, despite going, oh, we're going to go together, but we're going to play in different nations.
So when we started, Tom was already in the league. It already happened.
Best nation.
And we were looking through the nations. And I'd only just got my head around the fact that, unlike D&D, it's not your species that matters. It's where you're from. Like it only just really clicked. And I was going through the stuff, and I clicked on Dawn. We'd been looking through Brass Coast because we were trying to think of the ones of us that were going, oh, what would we go together with? Oh, Brass Coast looks fun. I can get into that vibe. Clicked on Dawn, and there's a picture. I talk about this all the time. There's a picture of Lady Griffonsbane looking over the Dawn encampment that really encapsulates the experience of Dawn at Empire. And I just went, that's what I want, and I'm going to do it. And then we all looked at it, and basically all of us were like, that is me. And we were like, well, let's just go for what we want to do and touch base. So E1, we spent a fair amount of time together, apart from you. We spent a fair amount of time with each other, like doing stuff. We did our own little bits with our nations, but spent a lot of time together. And it was just like, I think it was not a mistake, but everyone was very correct because we spoke to people. Everyone was very correct at this is going to be harder than going as a group. And they were right. It fully was.
I think it's worked out very well because we have 5 of us in different nations. Well, we've got 3 Navari now. You spread like weeds.
Oh.
But
Look,
yeah, it's a very interesting nation. But because we've covered so many nations, we have so much content to bring. Your Liga is going to be very different to your Dornish person, very different to your Navari. So people can log in and think, you know what? We're going to get so many different perspectives than just one.
I think it's you guys are like 2.0. Like,
Yeah.
it's a way better concept. It's a way better like idea. Like, ours is very Navari centric. Whereas, what's the lady called that you have on as well?
Kerry.
I really like hearing the 3 of you kind of discuss your weekends from your point of view.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about the structure of Empire where you have a nation and you start to emulate the core values of that nation, and in my local gaming group, I was messaging some people for a game of 40k, and I turned out this guy knew like a bunch of people I knew on his mutual friends thing, and I was like, this guy's got to be a LARPer. Yeah. Like, he's got to be a LARPer with that list of people. So, we were just, like, first question was, like, which nation do you belong to, right? Like, and you're kind of like, there's some judgment there. Like, what sort of person goes to this nation, right? Yeah. Like Dawn, right?
Yeah. Well, I think this is really funny. So I was talking to another LARPer when I went to 3 Kingdoms at the end of last year, and they had been in a few different nations. And I think that is a very funny getting their insight, because I think if you have been in only one nation, you do carry those kind of stereotypes. The minute you've been in a few, you're like, well, it's actually, it's much less, that kind of tribalism sheds away a little bit, because you're like, oh, well, okay, people are kind of playing a role. Because the person I play at Empire, first event was me dialed up to 11. Tristan is now very different to me. I think he's a lot more inclined to not follow orders. He very much believes in the Dornish ideal of noble yo-folk, and I'm a yo-folk, so I do have to listen to the people who are nobles. If they're not a noble and if they're not Dornish, I will do what I want. But he's very different to me. He's a lot less compassionate. He'll think about things in a very different way to me, and he's very arrogant. And I think a fun thing I like to do is be like, if someone compliments me, my first response is, "Oh, thank you very much." But I try to twist that with Tristan of the kind of like, oh yeah, I'm aware. Like, and I think it's fun to kind of lean into that a little bit. And I think especially when you're playing the Rose roles and you see, again, people who are playing up to their nation like that, you will be like, you're like, subconsciously, because you don't know them in any other setting, be like, prick. She'll be like, they're cool, they're in Dawn, they're playing a Dawnishman. And I think it's a really easy thing to assume.
I think I'm struggling at the moment is that my character Gellert is still very much me on the field. Like it's still very much. Empire is a weird game because it's the RP is actually very light. Like for 80% of the people there or more, it's a very very RP light situation. Going to other systems like iLARP and Northern Kingdoms and some player events has let me kind of like explore a few more different skins to what that is.
Might I say, just the death of your last character had me howling in hysterics for about half an hour. The Cleve story and being left on the battlefield was one of my favourite stories I've heard from Anvil.
It doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any like and bear in mind I did it. So therefore, it's like, and then to die with the coctopus in my face, like you couldn't write it any better. But it was like, I'm never gonna peek to that again. Like Gellert's gonna die in a ditch for some loose change in his pocket. Like there's no way I'm gonna be able to. That was It's funny when I was doing it, all I wanted to do was survive. Right? Like, it's a really great story, but at the time, I was like, fuck, I'm gonna fucking die here, right? Like, I gotta get the hell out of here. But basically, I think that's testament to the monstering crew, all the different interactions I had, the fact they let me drag out my death into a absurd series of events that ended with the whole Jotun army basically trying to stab me in the chest. Just amazing, just incredible, you know?
So one question I do have about your podcast, what made you want to start the Noobs of LARP storyline you used to have at the beginning of each of your episodes, which was quite ear-catching when I first started. It really sucked me in.
Yeah, so that was... the short version is we needed a warning because of how much we swear.
Fair enough.
If you listen to the first episode... It's literally Bungle basically
at
saying,
a campfire, right?
We're gonna swear a lot, but I'll tell you the story, and to try and add this extra layer of dimension that you're listening to a story of these people going off, and to make it a bit more legendary. That obviously developed as time went on into some like more. They started off as skits, like little ideas for intros and outros, and then that developed into more of a elongated storyline, which we did to ended in the Tower of Anok, which is basically getting.
I remember I turned around one day, listened to the podcast, and went, "Hang on, when did this become a story?" Like it would just been like fun little bits, and I went, "Hang on, there's plot here. Hang on, I need to pay attention."
Yeah.
It's a bad format because the intros and outros are like they're very short, and then you have an hour or more of people talking, and then you have this tiny skit at the end. So trying to amalgamate them into one big story was difficult. I should say like the reason why I haven't been doing them recently. We unfortunately lost a listener who I became quite friends with, a guy called George, a very young man to cancer, and I did some recording with George. I didn't get the script finished in time. George was very sick by the time that we actually did end up recording it, so he wasn't able to be part of it. And I've just got like a very large emotional lump when it comes to all of that. So most of it's recorded. I just need to kind of put it together. But honestly, it's one of those things where it's a shame as well, because I think that's one thing that made the podcast like really special, like having those intros and outros. And I think it's like, we have intro music and outro music. I think that's fine, but I think like I like what you guys do with some of your editing stuff. You add a bit more production value to stuff. You're adding like a bit more care to stuff, and I think that's potentially something that we're not necessarily doing at the moment. And I mean, I'm first to be quite critical of myself, but it's like I would love the idea of like I sit down one day and I just start editing and I get it done, right? Like I don't know when that's going to happen. It's been a while at this stage. I know everyone, if I do need to record more bits, people are going to be up for coming back and doing it, but I just feel like there will be a good mental space for it. That isn't today.
That's more than fair, dude. Like, it's I think because I'm aware from listening to podcasts of why that's happened, but it was fantastic. And like I say, it was a really good addition. It'd be great to get it back. But also, like, the stuff you do is amazing without it anyway. Like,
dude, we love recording it. Like the amount of people that are like just like people I know from work or like just random people I have contact with. That's how I got friends with Callum, because I found him hilarious and I went up to see him and I recorded his Simwig stuff, and it was literally like he didn't know me. And literally, I just invited him to my hotel room in the most seedy fashion.
Oh, my.
And then to record dialogue. And it's like, all that stuff is just it's amazing. It's really, really fun.
Well, that's a new euphemism. Want to come back to my room, record dialogue?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, hashtag cancel Dave. But the, I don't know, like, the actual the Beast of Breggers Land, the storyline that needs to be completed, actually has like an amazing fucking twist in it. It's some of the best stuff we've done. In fact, like even talking about it now, I kind of want to sit down and get it done. But yeah, we'll see. Watch this space. Basically, we'll hopefully get something done.
It'll be great to get it back.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
I mean, to be fair, that's some of the favourite stuff I've liked doing, because we've done one thing as Nietzsche interesting, because we're both going to Brokeliand. Because the Vlorn is the greatest spiritual threat to the Empire.
They don't exist.
And he doesn't and he doesn't think they exist, so I'm dragging him to prove to him that they do. I'm also recently become acquainted with the advisor to the Vlorn, so I'm also going to put him in front of them whilst telling them.
I need to go to Brokelion in order to not die.
Yeah, basically. Which is
ironically.
Yeah, I was going to say ironically, but
it's either the Vlorn kill me or an angry mob of Navari.
But yeah, exactly. Or both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, you're going to have a great trip, basically. You're going to have a really lovely trip.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be a lot of fun playing PTSD. I was so wrong.
Is Gellert coming? Or have a
No,
ship?
I have a fleet, so I'm off to crush slavers, despite what people might believe and the rumours about my character being pro-slavery. I am... It was funny. I had one person who, a friend of ours, wrote him a letter about me and was just like, "This Gellert Ashbourne, like he's terrible." Like it did this whole like absolute slam job in this letter about how terrible a human being I am.
Oh, they're probably just going to say you're topping up on slaves whilst you're there. You're not actually going to fight.
Right. Like, yeah, he doesn't mind being served grapes and wine when he's over there, you know. But and then they looked at you can check what people's fleets have been up to. And basically all my actions were like really virtuous. Like I went to help out the Axos orcs or whatever. I rescued people from the Brass Coast. I hit the slave traders in, where's that place called? Whatever. I'm a diplomat. And now I'm off to, crush the pirate slavers as well. So it's quite funny the people's impression of what my character is compared to who he actually is, you know.
You need to get someone on your PR. That's what you need. Your proxy should be doing better PR work for you. That's
hey, it's 2023. Like I feel like trying to sell people, hey, slavery's more than a black and white issue is a tough ask, basically. And I feel like genuinely it's a bit of a dead part of the game, like for obvious fucking reasons, right? Like but like I think it's much easier to say these people are just bad and we should crush them, rather than going into some sort of like, oh, they can do this to us, but we can't do anything to them. This is for the economic reasons. It's helping out our adversaries. Like the nuanced position is I'm against imperial citizens and followers of the way becoming slaves. Like I don't want to see us lose a war, for example. But that takes 20 minutes of me drunkenly ranting in someone's ears in order to get them on side. And I can't do that with 3,000 people on a field, you know? So
I think, but I think that's almost like, again, is what I love about the size of Empire and the scale of it. Like, because again, having done a couple of smaller LARPs, so a couple of ILARPs and then like a really small LARP, the thing that, whilst they can be a little more personal and the plot's a bit more intense, what I really love about Empire is the scale, and it has room for these kind of rumors to happen. Because, like you say, it's hard to convince 3,000 people that a man that's trying to put nuance to slavery is a good guy. Of course it is. And it makes sense for it to be, even if you remove the fact it's 2023, like we've, as a Empire, generally agreed that we need to put an end to it. And I think it's quite fun to have room for that, being like, yeah, you're right, you're 100% correct, we need to end it. But if we all die and then it doesn't end anyway, like, I think it's just a really interesting position for you to be in, but also hard to work with that in 2023 Earth.
I think there is an element of this where, how do I put this? Like, I feel that some people's reputations out of character might be affected by their decisions in character, right? And I think that's something that we all have to live with. I certainly wouldn't want to play a character that was unironically pro-slavery, right?
God, no, yeah.
Just me as a human being, I don't think that's something that I'm comfortable RPing with. Whereas in the game of Empire, basically religion should be, in our hierarchical structure, should be the religion, the way should dominate pretty much everything else that you do in your life, right? Whereas I don't feel that is necessarily the way that the vast majority of people play at Empire. There are many other ways. In fact, I think it's quite interesting, the more public-facing chats that people have compared to the more private chats. Like, a lot of people give and I think this is how it is in the real world, right? Not everyone who's a gangster feeding people to pigs in the farms are like telegraphing this to people, right? Like, they'll keep it on the down low, but then behind closed doors. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's a very interesting part of the game for me to exist in anyway, you know?
I think there's also been the whole aspect of it's a hard part of the game to play and to be the person who's on the opposite side, if you like, to the tidal forces of opinion. And you've certainly had moments where you've struggled with it. But I think also the personal growth that's come from some of those moments, I think, has actually been some of the biggest parts. You know, when you've had to deal with disappointment and not winning, right? Like, and essentially being faced with failure and probably inevitability of failure on various things. That's been a lot of positives actually have come from that.
Understanding what a win looks like, right? Like the Kobayashi Maru, right? Like, sometimes, like, you have to understand that you're fighting a losing battle, but it's the way that you fight that battle and the differences you can make in the meantime. I think that's kind of like one of the more interesting things. Also, like, as with anything in LARP, and this is something that I'm slowly learning over the years, is the journey that you're taking is much more important than the result, right? Like, we all like a win. We all like that there is competitiveness in us, that we want to inflict our will onto the world. But, like, in my time playing at Empire and playing a fairly difficult game, is I've met loads of very fucking cool people. Like, I've had some really interesting chats. I've blown my top. I've been ostracized. I've been crushed and defeated. I've had little wins. I've done it all, like, with Gellert, and it's been really fun, you know. And I solved a murder, so
yeah, that was pretty good.
You know.
No, I really do agree with that. I think it's really interesting, especially getting into it, given this is like our first year. I think for me, it's you bring in trying to work out where to go, right? And having an objective, I think, is really good at a game like Empire. It's so big, but also, again, knowing that it's the process to getting there. So I have very much, like, in Dawn at the minute, I'm competing with the fact that Tristan, again, is like a dog chasing a car. Like, the minute something else enters his view, it's like, that's the most important thing. And the recent thing has been the Valorn, and I've currently got the upward battle of Dawn. Are like, yeah, sure, Valorn are a big deal, but Barons, and having that conversation with, I know there's probably Daunish people listening to now, like, well, who cares about the Valorn deal? And it's knowing that that's never going to be most people in Dawn's priority. But
Right, like I heard one Dornish noble say, "Oh, that was it. Like your regional rivals or something. Like a real diminishing perspective towards what the Valorn are." And I love it. I think it's so good, and I think that's I think it's really cool. Like if you went into Navarre and went like, "Hey, fucking the Valorn aren't a big deal. You should be concentrating on this." That again would be a very hard sell, right? Like most people would laugh. Like let me put it this way: even in this conversation, you assumed I would be going to the Valorn, right? Like because I'm Navari, right? Like why would I not be going off the Valorn? It's
because he's a filthy splitter.
Scam.
Actually, he's got completely legit reasons, and it actually makes complete sense of him being a fleet owner. But it's interesting because I think you find like there's so many different ways to play any game that you're part of, and you can find the difficulties and the challenges that for yourself to explore with any of those different games. So I think one of the things that I discovered is like I'm quite like if I'm playing a board game or if I'm playing like a war game or whatever, I'm quite try-hardy in a lot of ways. Right, and I do a lot. It's very much in my head a lot of the time, and it's hard to sort of separate that. So when I went to Empire and when I'm role playing, pen and paper or really at Empire, like I actually try and make the challenge a lot more about like self-expression of who I am and trying to convey that's the challenge. That's the actual game that I'm pursuing. And that's like my win state is to express myself in a way which is exciting and captivating for other people to be excited by and captivated by. Right, it's something that actually draws attention because that's not normally the thing in my normal life that I would pursue. Normally, I'm quite wallflowery. Normally, I'm quite self-conscious. Normally, I'm quite withdrawn. Normally, I'm quite quiet. Normally, I'm quite reserved. And these things, through doing them at LARP, have kind of grown in my own personal life, and I've got better and better and better at doing them, and more comfortable doing them, right? So that has been, if you like, in a very different way to Dave, that has been like my apex mountain. The prevailing wind that I'm actually sort of fighting is my own sort of self-consciousness, my own sort of like sense of that's not who I am, right? That's the prevailing wind that I've been battling against, and slowly I've been trying to work on sort of pushing against that. So it's a very different type of game to explore.
You'll just have to interrupt Ian at times. By the way, once he gets some steam going downhill, he'll just keep going.
I have to cut him off. Yeah, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
No, I think it's really interesting though, because I think that for me, anyway, Empire came at a time where parts of my life I feel like it feels a bit like I can't do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like as much as you do stuff, you don't have an influence. It's a bit kind of like whatever. I have all these ideas and these beliefs and these things I want to do, but I can't do anything with them. And then go for a weekend, and I spoke about this last time, was going around Empire, getting Liao to help for the battle, and getting someone saying, "Oh, you did a really good job." Coming away being like, I feel like, despite being related to nothing, like I've had like an amazing achievement. I think it's funny what we look for in LARP that we don't have in our own lives. And I think it's really interesting that you guys say you went for stuff that you didn't necessarily have.
I just love how you guys all have profound stories about your characters are growing or developing you as people. I'm just there memeing and falling upwards, and somehow...
okay. The game is the thing to distract you from what you're actually doing. Okay, like let's get hard out into it. Like when you're in society and you're wearing like society's mask that you've learned to wear your entire life, right? Because of your experiences, your upbringing, all the inputs that you've had in your life lead to who you are standing in the real world. What LARP allows you to do is swap that mask out for someone else, and then to be able to express what that person is. Now, the really fun part about this is that you start to realize, oh, it wasn't my character that rallied all those forces and won the battle, or whatever your game might be, right? Like, however unheroic or whatever that might be. But like, you're still learning a really fun way to express who you are. Like, I like saying this, where it's just like the irony of learn who you really are. Sometimes you have to be somebody else, and I find that's one thing that like Empire and other LARP systems really allow people to do. Like, some people are from generals to people selling stuff to just agents of fucking chaos, right? Like, and so you're still a leader of a group, right? The Magpies, right? Yeah. Like, you're still
the Jackdaws.
The Jackdaws. Sorry,
I don't know how that happened. They're just like, you're the leader. What?
Yeah,
follow me, like, my children.
So you think you're just an agent of chaos, but in fact you're still taking on this responsibility for other people, right? And I think that says a lot about you as a person, right? Like, you may try and fight it, but like, shit, I'm being really compassionate. I want to make sure everyone's having a fucking good time, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, definitely. That was the idea of the Jackdaws to begin with. I struggled to find new game in the league. It seemed everyone had their guild, and it was we're the best, we're the heroes. Like, you know what? We'll try set something up for new players, and it's gone from 2 people to 11 in the space of 1 game.
I think that's really funny, though, because we came back from Flying Lead. It was just us 2 in the car, and Tom's like, at some point I'd love to play a serious character. And I kind of looked at him and went, do you not realise all weekend you've played a really compelling character? Like, you were really serious, you added a lot to the game, and you actually started off as a bit of a joke, but then became like a real compassionate character who was helping people, doing everything you could. And it was just funny. You were kind of like, I would like to play a serious character. Like, you just played a serious character for like 2 days. Like, I feel like you don't sometimes realize what you're doing as you do. And I think everyone doesn't really realize what they're doing as they LARP, and then you're like, yeah, that's something I just hadn't noticed about myself.
Also, the poignancy of the link between comedy and tragedy, and the actual sort of perpetual motion around that sort of circle, it is very interesting and compelling as well. And that you can go, like, if you think actually about some of the saddest parts of a movie, it's often when you see the happy-go-lucky character who's in the low point. Or simultaneously, when the most uplifting parts are when you see someone who's been in a bad space come good, right, and find humor and stuff. And it's actually it's interesting that you can play like a ridiculous sort of character, but actually at the same time you can bring a lot of gravity to what you're doing. And that's not necessarily through tragedy, but that could be through just fellowship of bringing people together, like you do with the Jackdaws. I mean, that's basically all the Navarchas are, is just like a group of people who happen to have bows that we kind of decided archery is a fairly lonely game at times. Let's just hang out, right? And that's literally all it is.
Well, Morgan's suggesting that to really play into the sad thing. With the league, I need to get myself a sad mask for Sneechy. When I'm all sad. It's a
It's like
Sneechy.
Painted on tier or something.
Hey man, like, I think it's like not everyone can play upbeat, fun characters, right? Like, don't diminish your kind of involvement and stuff. Like, I had a great time interacting with you at Flying Lead. Like, you trying to...
it was so much fun.
Just really fun, and it also allowed my character to be Hennessy, right? Like, and the way you reacted, because I'm really not an intimidating person. Like, I'm really not. Like,
I couldn't fix your friend's lung, my god.
Yeah, but like, you get to other people reacting to you, being very angry, and then being like literally cowering away from you is like something that I'm not used to. It's just like, well, that gives credibility to Hennessy as a character, right? Like, yeah.
Well, I think that's one thing I really like about the brief at iLARP, is that they're like, play up what you're doing and respond to what other people are doing. If someone's trying to be a big bolshy, be intimidated a little bit, or take it to the next level. Like, if you are also a big like, kind of raise the stakes. Now, like, that's what I love about the whole iLARP experience. Like, when we did Hoist the Colours, which was such good fun, there was a massive, like, in the street, like, absolute massive argument between 2 characters. And then, like, 30 seconds later, after the character had stormed off, the player came back, was like, hey, just checking in, you all good? It's like, yeah, I'm good. It's like, cool, and ran off. And it was like really nice, kind of like, hey, I think I know the level you're at, but I'll just check we're kind of all at a good level. I think Empire, with the one thing I think Empire could do with is more universal safety signals. Yeah. More kind of universal, kind of like, hey, call it. Like without having to break immersion, because you can just then call it off.
Yeah, I'm going to. I completely agree. By the way, I think that's a great observation. I think like I've had some weird stuff where I don't know whether my beef with someone is out of character or in character. Like I literally don't know, right? Like and usually when it's been like that, often it felt like it's been kind of out of character, right? Like because people attach themselves a lot to Empire characters. I'm going to 2 events this year, one in Spain and one in the Czech Republic. The one near Prague is really fucking hardcore. Like, I'm genuinely worried about what is going to happen. I don't even know whether I'm going to do an episode on it.
Is it the really religious one, or is that a different one?
No, it's like set in post-World War II in a mental institute, and it's like it's 30 hours. They give you like 4 hours to sleep. Everything's in character. There's no out of character. You can't talk to people. There's no checking in, right? Like there are hand signals which you can use, but there's no like, hey, Morgan, let's go to a quiet place and just talk out what just happened. No. You have to sit with that until timeout, right? Like you can talk to the staff about it. I'm genuinely worried, like, because that I know. I also worry about the sort of people that are going to be attracted to that sort of game and what that's really going to mean. But like, I'm deliberately doing it because I want to test myself, right? Like, I want to push myself to the. I can't think of a more hardcore environment for this, and I'm sure there are some Scandinavian guys just laughing right now. But like, for me, that's my Everest, that's my mountain, that's my marathon. You know, so.
I think that's fair enough. I think a big thing it's difficult in a situation like that, but I definitely think that having a big solution to all this stuff is usually just say something. So I remember when I had massive, my entire crew of my ship had a problem with another crew. And there was one guy who was particularly vocal on the other side. And I remember I had to explain something out of character that we'd done that you wouldn't know. Oh, it's hard to explain. We'd removed some bones from a hand, which caused a lot of controversy. But it was a fake hand, so they would never know. So I had to go to him out of character and explain the situation that he would realise. But we'd spent 2 days being like up here, like aggressive at each other, and just having that little moment of brevity, just think, oh, just so you know, there's no bones in that hand. It's like, oh, you fucking, and like that kind of like it was really funny, like interaction and go away is that kind of realisation, like, okay, yeah, this is all. We're all fine. Like we're all, and then we spoke afterwards. But it can be hard. You can be like, does this person actually hate me? Because that was a lot.
Yeah, I feel like iLARP actually has a really good culture behind it. Like there's 100%. The players that you're with. I mean, and this is the kind of thing about small LARPs versus large LARPs, right? Like Empire is 3,000 people. There's going to be all sorts of things there. And with that comes a certain element of anonymity, which means that you might have the occasional arsehole. It's very few and far between at Empire, very few and far between. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying if you listen to this. But with a 30 to 50 person LARP, there's a hell of a lot more accountability for what people are doing. I've had some pretty big Barneys in character with people at Northern Kingdoms and iLARP games, but knew I was completely fine within because I wasn't making anyone feel uncomfortable, and we could easily just have a quick chat. Oh, one thing I want to say is that the more you LARP, the more comfortable you feel putting your hand up and having that OC conversation. I wish it was something that like was more intuitive to when you're first starting the hobby, that is completely fine, and you should actually do that like as much as you need to, right?
Well, I actually had to do that in D&D the other day because never shouted at my friends before, but there was one breaking point in the game where enough's enough, yelled at her. I was like, are we okay? I'm just checking in. And that got very serious. So yeah, anytime anyone should just be able to check in with anyone. It's good for mental health, I think, especially in LARP and D&D, where it can get really intense real quick.
Well, I mean, that's why we have session zeros, right? And that's why you can have re-ups of session zeros and things like that. But in LARP, that's something that's what the hand in the air is, or the kind of the signals are in a lot of ways, are checking in with those kind of those moments of rules. And actually, I don't know about you guys, when I'm in a moment where I'm kind of flicking in and out of character using those kind of hand signals and stuff, I never feel like it's subtracted from my game in any way.
Oh god,
in fact, it's only enhanced it, because it's given me the confidence to, when the other person has been like, yeah, let's continue, or given me like the place where I need to be when it. I mean, I actually haven't had anybody be like negative about anything, but you know what I mean. If it did, it would tell me. You know what I mean? So it'd be. I find that actually doesn't subtract from my game in any way.
No, I agree. I mean, I was speaking about when we did Three Kingdoms, it was very much like we planned the roleplay beforehand. And if you told me that's how LARP worked before I'd done it, but like, it feels like you can't really do anything with it. But I had some really, really good, like intense roleplay with stuff that we'd planned. And I think when you first start, you're like, no, I want to be completely immersed. I want to forget my own name. I don't want to have to think about anything outside of it. But in reality, being like, hey, you good with this? Are we all fine at this level? Yeah, that's fine. We'll carry on.
All of it works. All of it works,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's at the end of the day, like roleplay is a cooperative experience, right? Like there's you can't do it by yourself or inflict it on other people. It has to be a two-way street. Like we're talking about with Hennessy being mean. It doesn't work if everyone else is like, fucking laugh me out the room type thing, right? Like there has to be a certain level of everyone. What's it called in wrestling? The no sell or whatever. If you do your special move and the other person just like shrugs it off, it diminishes the entire experience for everyone, including people watching it and then you're interacting with around you. Is like allowing people to exist in the characters that they want to be is part of your responsibility as a player, as much as trying to present yourself as a character is, you know.
For example, when you're monstering, right, and you get to play, like it's a lot of fun.
You play the
getting
heel,
killed, right?
Yeah.
And making it dramatic, making the other person have a hero moment, but making that you can the control of the tempo in those moments when you're sort of a monster fighting against a player, or when you're a player fighting against a monster, and you'll kind of have that moment of a really good back and forth where the cinematic combat's coming out, and you're kind of really buying into what it is to sell that moment. Right, it is very kind of wrestling in a way, right? It has that sort of element to it.
I think monstering is what I'm looking forward to going back to Empire most. Just getting on an Orc Master and terrorizing some players in a fun way, and then getting the crap beaten out of me in the most heroic way possible.
Like, some of the most ridiculous heroic things I've done has been as a monster, actually. Like, there's, like, weirdly, like,
You
there's
mean
been
beyond shooting someone with a bow, Ian?
What you mean? But beyond slaying a herald, yes,
You can't-
indeed.
You can't disrespect the hero
The
Bekelian.
hero of Brachelion.
Ridiculous.
Ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But no, but like there was this bit where I was just like cutting my way through a fort as this orc, and it was like so epic. It was like you know that Battle of the Bastards scene in Game of Thrones, where everything's going off, and it's just like. And you know how also it is where you get the movie filter of LARP after the fact comes in, and you start the way your memory works is a bit of a funny thing, and the way it sort of squishifies a lot of moments probably into a singular montage sequence of you being fucking amazing, right?
Yeah, no, 100%.
It was so
the amount of times I've looked back and I've been like, I feel like I can't sword fight, but I look back and I'm like, I was a fucking boss there. It was amazing. That did really good. But
like,
it's great.
Yeah, the reality was the Imperials were withdrawing, and of course that's quite easy. The easiest time to hurt the opponent is when they are withdrawing, and that because you have much superior numbers and all the odds are in your favor, right? But in the movie of my mind, it's me just like cutting swaths through people and just like, you know what I mean? That's not how it was in reality. I'm almost entirely certain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we're probably kind of running towards time now. But it's been really good to have you guys on.
Lot of fun.
Is there anything you want? Obviously, we talk about your podcast the whole time. But is there anything you want to plug before we sign off?
Oh, I released LARP Life
Oh, yes.
on
love it.
Spotify. So give that a listen. It only took 3 years to actually release.
It's
so
absolutely hysterical. Everyone, please bump the numbers up. It was really funny. Like, listening to it,
I
really
don't
enjoyed
get
it.
to see any numbers, but hey, just go listen to it, enjoy it. Like it's my love letter to LARP. So that's if anything, that's my one thing I'm plugging at the moment.
It's fantastic. You should be proud.
Well, thanks very much for joining us today, guys. And
Hey, thank you
so much
for having us. I mean, like we never get invites to do anything, so
Well, you're
really
LARP celebrities. Who would
I
dare
was
have
gonna
the
say.
audacity to ask?
we had to get you on. You are you were kind of what started me. Well, one of the things was like, it was really good to listen to. Be good to make a podcast. Be good fun. So thank you very much for all you've done, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
And thanks everyone for listening.
Bye,
and
friends.
we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to keep in touch, don't forget to look for us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you'd like to support the podcast, you can find us on Patreon. Also, we're hoping to get nominated for a LARP award this year. So you head over to the link in our link tree. You can nominate us for LARP Media if you'd enjoyed our content and if you've learned anything. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next week.